In the red dust town of Mbale, where the sun rises like a golden drum over the hills, and the scent of roasted maize follows you through every alley, lived a girl named Amale. Amale had the kind of smile that could make even the sourest pap taste sweet. But her life was no fairy tale. She lived in a mud-walled home with her younger brother Thabo and her aging grandmother Mama Nandi, who still braided her hair every Sunday and whispered Zulu prayers over her food. They had little, just enough to eat, rarely enough to save and never enough to dream big. But Amale still dreamed. She had pinned posters of the biggest fashion brand in Africa, House of Kwame, above her sleeping mat. Their dresses were art. Their runway shows were magic. And the CEO, Mr. Luyanda Kwame, was a name she said like a prayer, even though she'd never seen his face. She didn't need to. She only knew one thing. If she ever made it to that company, her life would change forever. It was just after the market had closed that day. Amale had sold every bracelet she had made from dried seeds and cowrie shells. Her hands smelled of palm oil and mangoes, and her feet ached from walking barefoot through the hot sand all morning. She had just enough coins for bread and maybe one candle for the house. She was halfway down the dusty road when she saw him. A man, sitting alone near the dry well. His clothes were torn, not in the way that fashion makes things look poor, but truly torn, dusty, forgotten. He was barefoot. His dreadlocks were messy and his hands trembled as he tried to drink water from a rusty can. Most people passed him like he didn't exist. Some even looked at him with disgust. A group of boys whispered "madman" and threw a pebble in his direction before running off. But Amale stopped. She didn't say much, just walked up slowly, took the bread from her basket, and placed it on his lap. He looked up, startled. "Eat," she said softly. "It's fresh." The man blinked. His lips were cracked and his eyes were hollow. "Why?" Amale shrugged. "Because my grandmother says even a lizard gives shade when the sun is too cruel." He took the bread with shaking hands. Tears welled in his eyes. He nodded, but said nothing. She smiled and turned away. She thought that was it. But life, like the stories Mama Nandi told, always has a second chapter hidden beneath the first. The next morning, a black SUV, shiny like fresh oil, rolled into the village. It stopped right in front of the small roadside shop where Amale sold her jewelry. Men in suits stepped out. One of them asked for her by name. Amale thought it was a mistake. "Me? You want me?" Then he stepped out, clean-shaven, in a white caftan that shimmered like moonlight. But she recognized his eyes, the man from the roadside. Her breath caught. "I'm Luyanda Kwame," he said, "CEO of House of Kwame, and you fed me when I had nothing." Amale's hands trembled more than his had. She couldn't speak. "I lost my phone, my wallet, everything. I was stranded for 36 hours in your village because my car broke down and no one stopped. Except you." He stepped closer. "I came to return the kindness. Come with me. I want to show you something." People began gathering. Whispers flew like birds. "That's Mr. Kwame." Amale, with the CEO. Amale's heart pounded like the village drums. Was this the beginning of her dream, or the start of something much, much bigger? People began gathering. Whispers flew like birds. "That's Mr. Kwame." Amale with the CEO. "Is she going to the city?" Women leaned from their doorways, wiping their hands on their aprons. Children stopped chasing tires to stare. Even the old men who sat under the mango tree all day suddenly stood up like their bones were young again. Amale stood frozen. She dreamed of this man, this company, this moment, but never like this. Not with the whole village watching. Not with her heart thundering in her chest like it wanted to break free. "Please," Mr. Kwame said, his voice kind and steady. "There's something I need to show you." She glanced at her stall, the beads and bracelets half packed in a calabash. Then her eyes found Mama Nandi, standing a few feet away, wrapped in her faded orange shawl. The old woman gave a single, nod, slow, proud. With that, Amale stepped forward. The crowd parted like water. Inside the SUV, the seats were soft as clouds, the scent of leather and cologne so strong she felt she might sneeze. For the first 10 minutes, she didn't speak. She clutched the edge of her seat, afraid that if she moved too fast, the whole dream might dissolve. He finally broke the silence. "Your bracelets. Did you make them?" She nodded, still unsure if she could trust her voice. "They're beautiful," he said. "You have the hands of an artist. Did anyone ever tell you that?" "My grandmother," Amalie whispered. He smiled. "She's a wise woman." The city rose up like a different world. Glass buildings, lights like stars, cars faster than birds. Amalie had never been here. She'd only seen it in magazines or the tiny TV at the village barber shop. They pulled into a towering building with gold lettering across the top, House of Kwame. Her mouth went dry. "This is where you work?" she asked, staring up like a child seeing the sky for the first time. "This is what you helped save," he replied. She didn't understand. He led her inside, through a marble lobby where polished shoes clicked against the floor, and women in dresses more expensive than her whole life walked by without looking. Up they went in the elevator, glass walls showing the city shrinking below. When they stepped out, he didn't take her to a showroom, not an office. He led her into a private space lined with sketches and fabrics. There was a large table, and on it, her bracelets. Her eyes widened. "You left those on the roadside," he said. "I sent someone back to collect them." "Why?" He turned to face her fully now. "Because I'm building a new line, one that honors African tradition, not just Western cuts. Your bracelets, they're real, raw, unpolished but powerful. I want you on my team." Amalie stared at him like he'd spoken in clouds. "You mean work here?" He nodded. "Train, learn, design. You'll earn your place. Nothing will be handed to you, but I'll open the door. You decide if you want to walk through." Her lips trembled. She thought of Mama Nandi's cracked feet, Thabo's, school fees. Her own dreams she had stitched into every bracelet, every bead. Tears welled up in her eyes. She nodded, once, then again. But Mr. Kwame didn't smile this time. His face darkened slightly. "There is one thing you should know," he said quietly. "Not everyone here wants you to succeed. This place and it looks shiny. But some of the people in it, they are made of glass, fragile, dangerous, and waiting for someone like you to break." Amalie swallowed hard, and just like that, the dream turned sharper. She was no longer just the poor girl from Mbale. She was the girl standing at the gates of gold, where kindness had opened the door, but only courage would keep her in. The next morning, Amalie stood in front of the mirror in the guest suite Mr. Kwame had arranged for her, inside a quiet residential complex not far from the fashion house. The room was bigger than her entire home in Mbale. There were lights that didn't flicker, a bed that didn't creak. Warm water came from the wall like magic, but none of that compared to what was waiting ahead. Her hands trembled as she tied her scarf. It wasn't the fabric she was used to. It was silk, gifted by Mr. Kwame himself. But it didn't stop her heart from feeling like it was wrapped in knots. She arrived at House of Kwame with her head held high, though inside she felt like a goat walking into a lion's den. Reception welcomed her with stiff smiles. Nothing warm, no kindness, just formality. A tall woman with skin smooth as riverstone and eyes cold like mountain ice approached. She wore heels that clicked like accusations and perfume that drowned the air. "You must be the charity case," she said. Arms crossed. Amalie blinked. "Sorry." The woman didn't smile. "I'm Zenzi, head designer. Mr. Kwame said you'd be joining my team. But let me make something clear. This isn't a village market, and pity has no place here." Amalie felt her ears burn, but she bowed her head respectfully. "I understand. I'm here to learn." Zenzi smirked. "We'll see." They walked. Through the design studio, rows of models, fabric cutters, tailors, assistants. Everyone moved fast, spoke fast, dressed like royalty. Amalie felt out of place, like a bird in the middle of lions. Zenzi led her to a corner table. "This is your space. Don't expect help. Don't expect applause. If you survive a week, maybe I'll let you speak." And just like that, she turned and left. Amalie exhaled slowly. She looked at the table, blank, empty, a fresh start or a quiet exile, she didn't know which. She unpacked her beads, her twine, her broken shells and pieces of cloth she had carried all the way from Mbale. No one noticed, no one cared. But that night, when everyone left, she stayed behind. She worked by the light of the emergency bulb in the hallway, threading beads with the same patience her grandmother taught her. Her fingers moved like whispers. She didn't need applause, only silence, time, and faith. By sunrise, her table held 3 bracelet designs, each one a story. One for the river where she used to wash clothes, one for her brother's laughter, one for the hunger that taught her strength. On the second day, no one noticed. On the third, a junior assistant paused, looked and frowned. By the 5th, Zenzi saw the bracelets and swept them into the trash without a word. Amali's chest ached, but she said nothing. That night she made them again. Each time they were thrown away, she replaced them, silent, focused, steady, until the day Mr. Kwame walked in. His steps were quiet, but his presence filled the room like thunder. He said nothing at first, just walked to Amali's table, looked down, picked up a bracelet she had named Wounds and Water. "This one," he said. "It tells a story." Amali nodded. Her throat was tight. Zenzi stepped forward, smiling, tightly. "She's been playing with shells and strings for days. I told her it's not our standard." Kwame raised his hand. Zenzi stopped mid-sentence. "She's not playing." "She's remembering." He turned to Amali. "Would you show me more?" Her eyes filled. She reached for the box she had kept hidden under the table. Dozens of bracelets, some clumsy, some delicate, all of them honest. Kwame took his time, touched, each one gently like it was a sacred thing. Then he turned to the team gathered around. "From today, Amali is no longer a trainee. She's a junior designer. Her line will be featured in our upcoming cultural showcase." Gasps spread like fire. Zenzi's face turned pale beneath her perfect makeup. "Amali, a girl from the roadside." Amali's knees felt weak, but she stood tall. The dream wasn't just alive, it was fighting. But dreams, like lions, don't sleep easy, and the jungle inside House of Kwame was only beginning to stir. The next few days moved like a storm behind glass. On the surface, everything looked calm. Polished floors, smiles from assistants, Zenzi's cool greetings. But Amali could feel it. Eyes that followed her too long, whispers that stopped when she entered a room, compliments that tasted like smoke. She tried to focus. Every morning, she lit a tiny matchstick beside her beads and whispered, "Ngiabonga, Tkosi, thank you, Lord." It was how Mama Nandi started every day back home. A small light to fight the dark. She worked harder than ever, day and night. Her wrists ached from twisting cords, her back throbbed from bending over sketches. But when she looked at her table, now full of stories from her village, her childhood, her dreams, she felt something close to peace until one morning. She arrived early, as always, but something was wrong. Her table was empty. Everything, beads, cords, drawings, samples, gone. She froze. A weight dropped in her stomach like a stone in water. Her heart raced as she looked around. She checked under the table. The trash bin, even the hallway, nothing. Her entire line vanished. She tried to ask Zenzi. "Oh?" Zenzi blinked slowly. "You mean those bracelets?" "I thought they were trash. Maintenance must have cleared them out. You really should be more organized, dear." Amali stared at her. You threw away my work?" Zenzi smiled, lips tight. "I assumed it was old material. Don't take it personally. Mistakes happen." Amali turned away, her face burning. She walked out of the room before the tears could fall where they could be seen. She found an empty stairwell, pressed her back to the wall and let her chest shake. All that work, all those nights, gone. But deep inside, past the pain and the ache, she felt something else. A fire. She returned to the studio that night. Everyone had gone home. Even the janitor had turned off the lights, but Amali stayed. She laid out new cords, new beads. She sat cross-legged on the cold floor and began again. Her hands moved faster this time. Not out of fear, but fury. She wasn't going to run. Not this time. Not ever. By sunrise, 5 new bracelets gleamed on the table, brighter, bolder, sharper. She named them after what she'd just lived: fire without smoke, the thief's smile, broken does not mean dead, eyes behind glass, and still I rise. Fatu. Next day, Mr. Kwame visited the studio again. He spotted the new pieces instantly. "These weren't here last week," he said. Amale stood beside him. "The others were taken. These are new." He picked up Still I Rise and studied the detail. Then he looked at her. "Zenzi said your table was empty." Amale didn't respond. Her silence spoke louder than words. Mr. Kwame turned to the assistant beside him. "Double security on this section. From today, Amale's materials are not to be touched without her permission." "Understood." The assistant nodded, wide-eyed. Zenzi didn't speak, but her silence was no longer calm. It was dangerous. That afternoon, a formal email went out across the company. Amale's bracelets would be the centerpiece of the cultural showcase, not a side feature, the face of the campaign. And that night, as Amale returned home, her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "You think this is over, village girl? You've just made enemies you don't understand." Her fingers tightened around the phone. She thought of Mama Nandi's words long ago. "When the wind gets louder, sing louder." Amale wasn't just surviving now, she was rising. And the higher she rose, the more the ground beneath her began to shift. The next morning, Amale walked into the studio with her head held high, but her spirit guarded like a calabash sealed tight. She wore a simple cream dress that Mama Nandi had sewn by hand years ago, but now it moved like royalty with every step she took. Her name echoed in the halls, not with kindness but with weight. People watched her, respected her, feared her. And in a place like House of Kwame, all 3 meant one thing: danger. The cultural showcase was 10 days away, and Amale's line, "Roots of Gold," was the headline. Her pieces now sat in glass cases. Journalists whispered about the new, village-born prodigy. Even fashion bloggers from Paris and Lagos mentioned her name like a prophecy. But fame, like sweet fruit, often carries a worm inside. Mr. Kwame called her into his office that afternoon. His suite was on the top floor, glass windows, hardwood floors, and a silence that felt both sacred and cold. He stood by the window, staring out at the city. "I need to ask you something," he said without turning. Amale nodded, unsure. "Did anyone ever tell you why I disappeared that day you found me on the roadside?" She froze. He turned around. His eyes weren't tired or soft like they were that day by the well. They were sharp now, calculating. "No," she said slowly. "I only knew what you told me. You were stranded." He nodded, walked to his desk, opened a drawer. He pulled out a thin black folder and placed it on the table between them. "Read it," he said. Amale hesitated, then opened it. Her hands went cold. It was a report, a confidential internal audit. House of Kwame had nearly collapsed. Millions in missing funds, shell companies, fake vendor payments. Someone had stolen from the company. Her eyes darted to the date. The day he was found in Mbale. "I wasn't stranded," he said. "I ran. Someone betrayed me. Someone close." Amale looked up. "Who?" He leaned back, fingers steepled. "That's what I'm still trying to find out, but I have my suspicions." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I trust you. And because—" his voice softened. "Someone in this company is still working against me. And now they're working against you too." She felt her breath catch. "You think the same person who sabotaged you is sabotaging me?" He nodded. "Zenzi was once like a sister, but power changes people. She wasn't always this bitter. Someone turned her. Someone promised her something. And now you're in the crossfire." Amale stood silent, the folder still open in her hand. Her dreams had always been about colors, fabric, and design. She never imagined boardroom betrayals and corporate bloodshed. "What do you want me to do?" she asked quietly. "I want you to watch. Listen. Don't trust anyone, not fully. If someone offers you friendship too quickly, be careful. Especially now, he paused. And if you see something, tell me first. Amali nodded, unsure if she was walking deeper into the dream or being handed a knife and asked to stab in the dark. Later that night, she sat on her bed, looking out over the city lights. She held her brother's photo in one hand and her latest bracelet in the other. Her dreams had brought her far, but now she saw clearly. This world had its own language. Power whispered in codes. Smiles were masks. Kindness was rare, and sometimes the one holding your hand was the same one preparing to push you off the edge. Her phone buzzed. We need to talk. I know something about Mr. Kwame. Something you should know before you trust him too much. The number was hidden. No name. Amali stared at the screen, heart pounding. Was this a warning or a trap? Either way, the game had changed, and Amali was no longer just the girl with beads. She was part of a war. Amali didn't sleep that night. She sat by the window, the phone still in her hand, her thoughts spinning faster than the wind outside. The message, I know something about Mr. Kwame, something you should know before you trust him too much, had broken something inside her. Or maybe it had opened something that was already cracked. She hadn't replied. She couldn't. The number was private, the message unsigned, but it clawed at her mind like a cold hand in the dark. By morning she was quiet, focused, but the usual glow in her eyes had dimmed. She entered the studio with the grace of a queen, but the guardedness of someone walking through fire. She kept her head down, her ears open, her heart locked. She noticed things now, the assistant who used to smile but suddenly couldn't meet her gaze, the fabric supplier who always lingered too long around, Zenzi's desk, and Zenzi herself, sharpening her nails on words that sounded sweet but hid venom underneath. That afternoon, while the others took lunch, Amale stayed behind. She walked carefully into the storage room, where old designs were kept and where only a few staff had access. She wasn't sure what she was looking for, but something pulled her there. She opened a box marked Archive Season 3. Inside, among old sketches and faded cloth, was a folder. Not company branded, handwritten, untitled. She opened it. What she saw made her chest tighten. Designs. Beaded designs. Just like hers. But they were dated 5 years ago, and they were signed. Zenzi M. Amali's hands shook. These weren't Zenzi's. Usual clean, modern lines. These were raw, rooted, tribal-inspired, exactly the kind of work Amali was doing now. She flipped further. Notes, descriptions, titles like Daughters of Dust, Village Moon, and Salt and Bone. They weren't Zenzi's. Voice. They felt borrowed. Stolen. A soft creak behind her made her spin. Mr. Kwame stood at the door, watching. I see you found the past, he said. Amali swallowed. Are these hers? He nodded. That's what she claimed, until someone from Ghana came forward, a beadmaker, said these were his grandmother's patterns. Zenzi had bought a few samples once, then built a whole line off them. Amali closed the folder slowly. I kept them here, locked away, never said anything publicly. The fashion world forgives theft if the dresses shine enough. I didn't want to ruin her completely. But I warned her, never again. Amali looked at him. But she's trying again, with me this time. He nodded. Which is why I need your help now more than ever. She hesitated. And who sent that message last night? He blinked. What message? She believed him. He looked too surprised. But that only made it worse. Someone else was in the game. That evening, as the city lights blinked on like fireflies, Amale sat in her flat with the folder on her lap. The old designs spoke to her, not because they were beautiful, but because they were echoes of the same struggle, the same hunger. She now understood Zenzi's hatred. It wasn't just envy, it was fear. Zenzi had built her name on stolen beauty, Amalisi. Had built hers on truth, and truth doesn't fade with fashion. Her phone buzzed again, same number. New message. Meet me tonight, alone, if you want the truth about Kwame and why he really vanished that day. A location followed, a quiet cafe near the edge of the city. Amale stared at the screen. This wasn't a game anymore. This was a Choice: to trust the man who changed her life, or follow the thread that might unravel everything. She picked up her shawl, wrapped it tight, and stepped into the night. The cafe sat at the edge of the city like a forgotten memory, small, quiet, dimly lit, with only the low hum of jazz and the occasional clink of glass. It wasn't the kind of place people from the fashion world frequented. That made it perfect. Amale entered cautiously. Her heart beat a strange rhythm, half fear, half fury. She wore her scarf low, eyes scanning the room. In the corner, a man lifted a hand. He was older, maybe in his 40s, wore a grey coat too big for him, and a cap pulled low. His eyes were sharp but not unkind, like someone who had seen too much and learned to keep it all inside. "You came," he said. "I don't have long," she replied. He slid a cup toward her. She didn't touch it. He smiled faintly. "Smart girl." She sat down slowly. "Who are you?" "Name's Seifu. Used to be Kwame's partner. Long time ago, before the fame, before the scandals, before he started building empires with other people's hands." Amale narrowed her eyes. "What do you mean?" Seifu leaned forward. "Let me tell you something, Amale. You think he was stranded in Mbale that day? Think again. That man wasn't running from thieves. He was running from truth." Amale's chest tightened. Seifu continued. "Kwame didn't lose millions, he hid them. He created the theft story as a cover, blamed it on a faceless hacker, vanished, and came back as a humble, reinvented man. But while he was playing victim, he was also studying people, watching, looking for new talent he could control." She shook her head. "No, he believed in my work. He gave me a chance when no one else would." "Yes," Seifu said. "And when your designs become the face of the company, who owns them?" Amale didn't speak. "Who owns your ideas, your heritage, your name? You signed the contract, right? The one buried in that 47-page employee packet?" Her throat dried. "Picks people like you," Seifu said softly. "From the margins. Hungry, talented, grateful. People who won't ask questions until it's too late." Amale felt like the walls were closing in. "But why are you telling me this?" Seifu looked her dead in the eye. "Because I made the same mistake you did. I gave him everything, my ideas, my trust, my silence. And he gave me a check and a blacklisted name. I want him exposed, but I can't do it alone." He slid a flash. "Drive across the table. Everything's in here, emails, transfer logs, contracts with fake names, even old recordings. But once you open it, Amale, there's no turning back." She stared at the drive. If Seifu was right, her whole career, her name, was already tangled in a lie. She'd become the face of a brand, built on shadows. If she stayed silent, she'd rise higher, on stolen ground. But if she exposed it, she could lose everything, her dreams, her future, her name. She picked up the drive with shaking fingers. "I don't know if I can trust you," she whispered. "You don't have to," Seifu said. "Just trust your heart and your grandmother's voice, wherever it lives inside you." He stood, nodded once, and walked into the night. Amale sat alone for a long time, the flash drive burning in her palm like fire. She thought of the day she gave bread to a stranger. She thought of Zenzi's warnings, of the hidden designs, of the dreams she had once sewn into bracelets under candlelight. And she thought of one truth. If you want to rise in a world built on lies, you have two choices: climb quietly or burn it down. Amale didn't sleep that night. The flash drive lay on her table, untouched yet heavier than any stone. She kept thinking of Mama Nandi's voice. "When the wind gets louder, sing louder." But Amale didn't feel like singing. She felt like screaming. If what Seifu said was true, she was standing on a throne of lies. Her designs, the beads, the stories, the roots of her life, were being sewn into a brand that would claim her work, her heritage, her soul. She had one final decision to make. She spent the next day watching everyone. Zenzi was smiling more than usual, like a lion licking blood off its teeth. Whispers swirled that she was being promoted, that Kwame had pulled her aside for a confidential project. Mr. Kwame himself didn't speak to Amale that morning. He barely looked at her during the team check-in. But when she passed him in the hall, he whispered, "Some truths are poison, Amali. Be careful who feeds you." That evening, the cultural showcase began. It was breathtaking. Models with skin the color of every African sunset walked down the far runway wrapped in Amali's beadwork, crowns of memory, sashes of struggle. The crowd rose to its feet. There were flashes, shouts, standing ovations. Her line, "Roots of Gold," was a triumph. But she didn't smile. Backstage, she stood in front of a mirror, staring at herself. Behind her, Zenzi appeared like a shadow. "You should be grateful," Zenzi said. "Most village girls never make it past selling shells on a mat." Amale turned slowly. "And most thieves don't get applause. Yet here we are." Zenzi's smile cracked. "Careful, girl." But Amali's eyes were calm. "I've been careful all my life, now I'm just being true." Minutes later, the final speech began. Mr. Kwame took the stage in front of flashing lights, reporters, and the world's eyes. "Tonight," he said, "we celebrate a story, a girl from the soil of Africa, a symbol of hope, tradition, and talent. Amale, our rising star." Applause thundered. Amale walked onto the stage, calm and regal, her grandmother's wisdom echoing in every step. She took the microphone with hands that no longer trembled. "I want to thank you all," she said, "for seeing our culture, for seeing our history, but there's something else you need to see too." The screen behind her lit up, Sefu's files, the emails, the transfers, the stolen designs, the contract clause that signed over her entire collection permanently to House of Kwame, and the proof of Kwame's hidden accounts, the fake theft, the years of manipulation. Gasps ripped through the room. Kwame's smile collapsed. Zenzi's mouth hung open. Amali continued, her voice strong, unwavering. "I was the girl who gave bread to a man in need, but I will not let the same man eat my dreams in silence. I come from women who carried water on their heads and fire in their bones, and I will not be another silent bead in someone else's necklace." Security rushed the stage. The feed was cut, but the internet had already caught it. Within hours, hashtags trended. Interviews surfaced. Journalists swarmed. Investigations began. Zenzi disappeared. Kwame was suspended, then later stepped down, claiming stress. And Amale? She walked away. Not in shame, in power. With Sefu's help and international backing, she launched her own label, Amali and Roots. A brand built not on stolen dreams but sacred stories. Beads that whispered truth. Dresses that sang of dirt roads and dignity. She returned to Mbale and built a workshop behind Mama Nandi's hut, trained local girls, sent Thabo to the best school in the province, and every dress she made carried a message stitched inside. Kindness is not weakness, but betrayal is never silent. And sometimes when the sun set low over the red hills and the radio played an old folk song, Mama Nandi would smile and say, "You see, child, the world forgot our names, but you made them remember."